this, and I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbor. I'm gonna haul him up by a chain. I will eat your ass. I'll do it. You think I like sizing up my neighbor? Cut him, skin him, chop his ass up. My children aren't going hungry. I will eat your ass. I'll eat your ass. I'm literally looking at my neighbors now going, I will eat your ass. I will eat your ass. Eat your ass. My superpower is being honest. And I will eat your ass. I will eat your ass. Eat your ass. That's why I want the globalists to know. I will eat your ass. I will eat your ass. Eat your ass. I've extrapolated this out. And I will eat your ass. I'll admit it. I'm not letting my kids die. I'm somebody that thought I could fix this, and I'm starting to think about having to eat my neighbor. I'm gonna haul him up by a chain. I will eat your ass. I'll do it. You think I like sizing up my neighbor? Cut him, skin him, chop his ass up. My children aren't going hungry. I will eat your ass. Eat your ass. I'm literally looking at my neighbors now going, I will eat your ass. I will eat your ass. Eat your ass. My superpower is being honest. And I will eat your ass. I will eat your ass. Eat your ass. That's why I want the globalists to know. I will eat your ass. I will eat your ass. Eat your ass. I've extrapolated this out. And I will eat your ass.
There is a sixth dimension beyond that which is known to man. A multiverse as vast as eternity, as timeless as the Infinity Gems. It is the middle ground between the big two and the indie publishers, between sci-fi and mysticism, and it lies between the pages of the reader's imagination. At the summit of entertainment, the dimension of comics, where a humble service is held. We call this service the Gospel of Comics.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Gospel of Comics. I am your host, the Church of Failure, and with me, as always, is my trusty co-host, Ayrton McCartney. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I will eat your ass.
I figured you would appreciate that.
How have I never heard that before? That was amazing.
Settle down, Einbrecht. We haven't introduced you yet.
Anyway, joining us in the digital studio today, as so rudely told by my co-host, we are joined by Mr. Scott Payne and Mr. Arcanus Einbrecht. How are you gentlemen doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic.
I'm not sure if Scott can hear us. Ayrton, I'm going to drag him into the waiting room and see if you guys can figure that out.
Yeah, you got. We'll catch up.
Okay. Well, we won't start the show proper until you guys get back, but I'm going to drop him into the waiting room, and if you'll jump in there. Yep, okay, got it. Good. So, Einbrecht, what's been up, man?
Not too much. Been pretty busy just talking to the artist, getting shit sorted for more concept art, and I've been having a lot of fun with that, just seeing how he realizes everything. He's
Okay.
I don't understand how someone hasn't scooped him up before now.
Well,
he's legitimately very talented.
Hopefully we will be able to show that soon on the channel. However, tonight we are here to talk about Age of Apocalypse. There's some pretty funny stuff been going on Twitter, but more capable hands than mine are covering that this evening.
Indeed, there's a war campaign stream going on at some point.
There is, and I do encourage everyone to go check that out. If somebody could get me a link to that, I will put it in the chat. But
Give me 1 second. I actually have their D Live, so I'll pop in there real quick and grab the link.
all right. Well, while you do that, I will get the first issue of the portion of Age of Apocalypse we're covering today queued up. I'm gonna hopefully Ayrton. I'm not seeing either one of them talking, but we're not in the room, so I don't. But hopefully they get that sorted out. It would be awful to have audio issues this early on. By the way, anybody at home with your bingo cards, audio issues, check them off.
Yep. Sadly, we always have this.
Well, I mean, it's Discord and YouTube. Of course, you're going to have audio issues.
Yes, sir. That is precisely it.
So,
I dropped it in the live show chat, the D Live War Campaign.
all right, yeah. Let me pull that out here. Oh, okay. Scott's in there. Hopefully they get things sorted out. There's another Scott and there's two Scotts, ladies and gentlemen. We have two Scotts. Jesus Christ.
Only on Discord, gentlemen. Only on Discord.
This is a disaster. I'm so happy I did this. Who needs a sound check, right? We'll just go live. Everybody should be fine. We did this like last week. It'll be great. No.
Nope. Discord found a way to screw it up. It's Discord.
There's the D Live link for everybody in the chat who wants to check out the War Campaign stream. Something interesting going on over there. Nothing I care to comment on. However, I do encourage you to go check it out and see if it's something you're interested in hanging around for. Well, I will not take offense whatsoever. Because I've been laughing at it all day. I just I want to keep my schedule up, or else I'd be over there right now.
It's been outstanding, I must say. I was surprised to see Perch is moderately annoyed by the drama, but I mean, I understand his perspective.
Who is?
Perch.
Oh, I also saw that Doug
Comics by Perch.
Yeah, I also saw that Doug Ernst was not too keen on seeing it either. But you know, I haven't
seen Doug's reaction yet.
You know, I was thoroughly amused by it. I think it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Oh, definitely.
So, anyway, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you haven't been on Twitter at all today. Or you're just not involved in comics Twitter and you show up because you like me and I love you, so don't worry about it.
We won't subject you to the
Yes, aggressively relaxing. It is hailing where I live. It hails all day and all night. Hail, brother.
Hail, Chad. Hail, chat in general.
Let's see. So, what book did we start out with this week? I think it was X-Men Chronicles #1.
Yes, sir.
Alright, let me get that pulled up.
Yeah, which has a really...
Oh, it's a beautiful cover.
Yeah, it's...
I got that pulled up on stream now. No, on this one you see... It's almost like a classic X-Men cover. Like, I really...
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what it is, but I think this is not a parody, but an homage to a different X-Men cover.
Probably. One of the things I really like about it is the weird, almost Thanos clone in the bottom left corner, just chilling there.
Oh yeah, I have no idea who that is, but yeah, you have Nightcrawler.
I don't know.
And actually, it looks like a female Nightcrawler. You've got Magneto, Wolverine. I'm not sure who the green-haired guy is. Sabretooth, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Jean Grey, Marvel Girl, Aurora Monroe, Iceman.
I think that's
Apocalypse.
supposed to be Nemesis.
Okay.
Even though he's blonde, I don't know why his hair is green there. That looks like Nemesis.
Coloring issues were not uncommon in the 90s. Let's just be clear. There was not a lot of communication going on between creative control. So coloring issues were quite common. One character would be one color on one screen and another on another. It just there was no consistency because, I mean, they were really starting to skim back in the 90s with some of their stuff. Now, not all, but it's not uncommon to find a 90s comic with a coloring issue. I'm going to jump in the waiting room real quick. Just talk for just a second. I'm going to see where Ayrton's at. Hey, any luck, guys?
Well, he was here and we had a really bad echo. And now he's gone.
Okay. All right, I'm going to jump back in.
Style that they used for Marvel Comics for quite some time, and they had a habit of creating these amazing splash covers. It's phenomenal.
Ayrton is trying to get Scott's audio working. Scott Payne of Chaotic Flux. Chad, aggressively relaxing. It is nice here. I enjoy it. No, there's nothing you're not getting. I think Hail is that's Professor X with a green ponytail. Yeah, Hail is a greeting between members of the chat and I, certain people, War Campaign and whatnot. Just Hail brothers.
Yeah, basically Hail Chat, Hail War Campaign, Hail Comicsgate.
Hail. Yeah. Welcome to the show. If this is your first time, I hope you enjoy it. We are currently experiencing some audio issues. Ayrton is trying to work that out in the waiting room with Scott. But I guess we can get started, and they can just kind of catch up. So, with Age of Apocalypse, just as a quick refresher, also you can find part 1 of this series in the description down below, as well as links to everyone who's supposed to be involved. Not all are here yet. But Age of Apocalypse, in brief detail, Professor Xavier is shot and killed before he can form the X-Men and start his entire, crusade to coexist with humans and mutants side by side. That's cut real short when his son goes back in time. Legion kills him and destroys the space-time continuum because now he's created a time paradox. So a son who can't exist because the man who sired him is dead basically led to an Earth much like ours, except Apocalypse came to rise a lot earlier than normal and actually managed to basically take over the world whole cloth. You see a lot of familiar characters.
Specifically, the entirety of North and South America.
Right. But he's on a crusade to take over the entire planet.
Yes.
Now, what I found interesting about this series, whereas last week we covered the Legion quest, which led up into a.
All right, we're here. We figured it out.
We're here. Hello, Scott. How are you doing this evening, buddy?
Pretty good, buddy. How are you?
Having great audio, right? No audio issues whatsoever. That was all a bit.
Exactly.
We are.
No,
we were all just.
I feel like I was tripping on acid for a second there.
Right, absolutely.
Echoing.
Go ahead and tell the people who you are for those who are not familiar with you, Scott.
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Scott Payne. I am the creator, co-creator and writer of Chaotic Flux, which is now live and demand on Indiegogo. So hey, welcome. I'm glad to be here, and let's talk some Age of Apocalypse, one of my most favorite storylines.
Well, I'm actually questioning all of our taste at this point because this section of books that I read, they were not the best books in this series. Like we've read 2 sections of the timeline of Age of Apocalypse, and neither one of them actually get into the Age of Goddamn Apocalypse. Like we've seen more of what happens after Age of Apocalypse. We've seen more than what happens after Age of Apocalypse, and we've seen the actual goddamn event. and we've read 15 comic books already.
This
you
was
guys,
your
okay,
idea,
I know
Church.
there's different. I know there's different versions. Are they all the same? I mean, as far as like the layout, I'm not really sure. Because I had the trade paperbacks.
I have all the individual issues, and
okay,
Einbrecht has
okay.
the trade paperbacks and the omnibus.
The omnibus.
So
Okay. Is the omnibus laid out the same as the trade paperbacks, or is it different?
It's the omnibus is the same. It's missing some issues, however, that they chose to cull for the sake of brevity. But they
Right.
culled issues that are they give a lot of backstory, so it's fairly frustrating.
yeah, like what we read
Right.
this week.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. The entirety of what we read this week is missing from the omnibus.
Yeah. Yeah, the number one is kind of. I mean, I like a lot the first Chronicles that they throw in there.
Yeah,
You know, where it
yeah,
shows
I like that.
the early days when Wolverine is a part of the X-Men and all this, but
Mhm.
then it spins into the weird like Blink story
Yeah.
that was kind of not very important, and
I
Yeah.
think I mentioned last
Um,
week that Blink was one of my least favorite parts of this entire event, and I think this
she's
is
one of my
why.
most favorite. But well, when it gets more into the bulk of her storyline, it's pretty fascinating. But
Well,
yeah, this side story wasn't all that all that good with her.
no. When she was in the Exiles, it was good, but this was
Oh,
not.
absolutely.
I don't recommend anybody read this. We've read it, so you don't have to, chat. If you want to read Age of
Exactly.
Apocalypse, read Legion Quest, skip everything we tell you about this
Yep.
week, and then start reading what we read next time. That's good advice, right?
Yeah. It was a little grueling. It was. I had a hard time getting into reading this section.
Yeah. Like
Yeah, the astonishing, not astonishing. What was it?
the Tales of the Age of Apocalypse or X-Men Chronicles.
Yeah, X-Men Chronicles. It
Okay.
does a fair amount of setup. You get to see
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
start of the Age
I
of
didn't mind
Apocalypse,
those.
and that's
I didn't.
those are
mind
really
those.
good.
Yeah.
Good.
I do. Think,
I actually like the Blink side story just because of the twist in it, but
Mhm.
I do agree that it's like, what was the point?
Well, this one also has more setup for Cyclops and Havoc and Dark Beast,
Yes.
True.
which is nice.
That's
my
in
opinion.
Tales of Age of Apocalypse. Now, we're reading in the comic book historian chronological reading order, not the release order and not the trade order. So I think that might be what's
Right.
frustrating me, because this is what the supposed expert online says is the chronological reading order. However, Blink number 4 concludes at the end of Age of Apocalypse, as does
Right.
and X-Men Annual takes place before the Age of Apocalypse and after the Age of
Mhm.
Apocalypse and during the Age of Apocalypse, but not in that order.
Yeah, there's a reason why I don't tend to follow reading lists.
So,
Yeah.
well, I wanted us all on
Well,
some
I
form
think
of the
too-
same page, and
Yeah.
Right.
I took this guy for granted. So go ahead.
I was gonna say too. I think they just like there's certain things that tie into certain events in the timeline, but the overall story doesn't fit in that time, which is confusing. Which is why you get Blink
Yeah,
at the beginning, her side stories, which actually take place, like you said, more at the end of the storyline.
right.
So,
Well, it
yeah,
it
feels
flashes
like
forward.
The writers or the people putting the good book together. Yeah.
It flashes forward at
it's-
the end of
it's
issue
weird.
4 to the end of Age of Apocalypse. But anyway,
Yeah.
let me get the cover back up, and we'll jump in
Yeah,
as we
Fun
read
of time jump.
The lack of communication between the creative divisions is very apparent in the Age of Apocalypse.
Oh yeah. We were talking while
There's
you guys
an
were.
interesting video.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say there's an interesting video on YouTube where the writers and artists and what have you involved with Age of Apocalypse sit down and talk about Age of Apocalypse. And what's his name? The main writer on it, Joe. Job, is that his name? His last name? I don't know. But he was saying that.
Are you talking about Jeff Loeb?
Yes, he was saying that there was a very open-ended kind of, just run with it idea when they went for this. And he said it was, complicated and confusing for him as a writer, but he said he was able to make it work. But yeah, he said the creator, the head of the X-Men books at the time were just like, we have this crazy awesome idea. And at the same time, he was like, there's all these people working on it because there's multiple writers, and they did their own thing. They of course tried to do a cohesive deal with it, but he even admitted that they just kind of winged it on a lot of it, and there's some stuff that it all connects in the end, but at the same time, there was some stuff where he was like, "Oh, you did that, okay." Like he didn't know.
Yeah, nobody else
the
did that,
direction
but
they were going in.
no one else did that, but cool.
I guess now we have to deal with the fallout.
Right.
Yeah, basically.
So we're not going to be able to go through all these page by page, but I figured we would just kind of hit the
Right.
titles and just talk about it, and then we'll talk
Mhm.
about Blink's story as a cohesive unit at the end.
Yeah, that's what you do it.
X-Men Chronicles #1 is it's a pretty great introduction to who the X-Men are in the Age of Apocalypse, why they're in the predicament they're in, just how all this started with them and everything that went down afterwards. Basically,
Wolverine's a rookie. Cool.
Weapon X is a rookie. His name isn't
Yeah,
Wolverine.
Weapon X. You're right, Weapon X.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll talk about that in a
Yeah, 'cause
minute because that's another thorn in my side. But basically, Apocalypse
I like how they went with the.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I like how they went with the red and yellow. Like to me, the red signifies, that Magneto.
Right.
Magneto has a lot of red and the purple.
Right.
I like a nod to that he's leader versus Xavier.
Yeah.
I find it awesome though that they managed to keep Colossus's classic colors because they actually fit with the Magneto aesthetic.
That is great. Oh, yeah.
I thought that was very entertaining.
So this is where you get the introduction to the X-Men: Bobby Drake, Aurora Monroe, aka Storm, Quicksilver, the Scarlet Witch, Colossus, and Marvel Girl. And introduced to the team in this issue, you get Wolverine and Rogue. Now, both are very important
Weapon
characters.
X and Rogue.
Correct. Weapon X and Rogue. I forgot my own goddamn rule. I'm awful.
It's actually one of the things I love in this timeline. Rather than Weapon X, Wolverine, whatever you wish to call him, being sort of frontliner, he's almost like an assassin in this continuity. It's a really cool concept.
Well, unlike in Xavier's universe, his berserker rage was never really calmed down by Xavier early on.
Right.
So he never never really worked well with a team until he and Jean form a relationship. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. You're introduced not only
how they.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say how they show his berserker rage when he's fighting in the danger room at the first of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where he's got the red eyes, like.
Yeah.
He's berserk.
And the guy on the cover was Gideon. I just realized that's Gideon. We see him for 5 minutes in this comic book.
Yes, that's right. He's the mutant hacker. That's right. That's Gideon.
But yeah, Wolverine and his berserker rage and getting calmed down by Storm or by Jean Grey.
What is with the habit of naming AIs and people with technology-related powers Gideon in Marvel and DC? Just saying.
I mean, the lack of imagination, I suppose. So
fair enough.
But yeah, Chad Middleton.
I'm not complaining. I actually like the name. It's just a shame to see it so often.
Chad Middleton in the chat asked, "No Avengers?" No, and I don't think we've seen why yet. I mean, maybe brief glimpses, but basically, Apocalypse's forces.
There is a whole issue.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say there is a whole issue that goes into that. It goes into where is Iron Man, where is Spider-Man, where is the Fantastic Four and stuff and the storyline. It's just that we haven't got to that yet. But there is I think it was like at least one. There might have been 2 issues, but there's one issue for sure that goes really into that, where they are in this world and how it affects.
Right, and a lot of them have
There's some really interesting stuff with that.
Yeah, a lot of them have either already been defeated by Apocalypse or driven out of country. Is the short and sweet of it. Because in this universe, nobody can defeat Apocalypse. He's just too powerful.
Yep.
But anyway, you get to see the. Are we? No, I paused it. Never mind. You get to see Apocalypse's horsemen, which he has more than 4 of. So that's interesting to note. Like, even characters without horseman names, like you see Caldera here. I'll pull that up in a moment. Yeah.
It seems like he just, like, whoever he thought was the strongest on, to his standards, he just made them a horseman,
right,
regardless of how many of them there were.
Well, it
as long as they were powerful enough.
It shows to a caste system almost, because you have your horsemen, and then you have your prelates, which we'll get into later. And, you have like, obviously these aren't pin-worthy mutants, and then you have the low scum mutants that don't really fit his survival, that are either thrown to the fodder of testing or killed.
Well, I love that too. How there's the pins where they are trying to
where they breed them
stronger through genetic mutation and or manipulation, and there are like they keep trying, and they're like, oh, we can't get them manipulated quite yet, so they just hold them until the science has developed enough to get these ones that are being more difficult. And it's like they just want to be free. They're constantly being tortured by being mutilated and mutated, and they're like, nope, gotta keep holding you until we can get you to Apocalypse's standards.
No,
and then there's the then there's the humans who are literally good for nothing other than genetic material. They melt down flat skins, which is what they call humans,
it's so crazy.
into genetic material.
Yeah. Very, very Holocausty, so and I think that's I think that's intentional, because again, you see that, and again, I'm jumping ahead of myself.
And the Jews.
That's correct.
No,
we do.
Awful.
Susan, don't ban us. But no, I think it's intentional that they do make several references to Apocalypse basically being mutant Hitler, because it parallels to Magneto being the savior of this universe.
Yep.
I think too it just goes along with the idea that, well, I think too it just goes along with that idea of survival of the fittest, and he's trying to create this, the society where the best of the best survive and everyone else perishes. If you're not strong enough, too bad.
Right.
And it just happens to play into that idea what the Nazi Hitler Third Reich was trying to do in a sense.
Well, I think they use the word eugenics a few times in these books, if I remember correctly.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So. And specifically, Dark Beast specifically used.
It was a different time, guys. It was the 90s. You could say that word without being banned. But
you remind me, there was I can't remember what issue it was. I think it was a Captain Marvel book from the or not Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel from the 80s. And in the book, it's one of the first times they have a letter section, a fan letter section.
Right.
And at the time, they were kind of writing Captain or Miss Marvel more.
You're talking about Miss Marvel, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and there was a fan who wrote in, on the letter section and said, "Hey, you guys are making her quite feminist, like feminist agenda-ish, and like you guys can't do that, And this was a woman at the time who wrote it, and Marvel agreed. They wrote her back like, "Oh yeah, we don't mean to do that. We're sorry, and we'll fix it. We'll change that." And it was just that was Marvel in the 80s versus today, and it's like, whoa, like the night and day contrast there. Like, well, I wish it was back then, but here we are today, and just remind me that when you're talking about this whole eugenics thing, that back in the 90s that was okay to say and whatnot, but today it's like frowned upon and wild.
But You
and call a character literally Holocaust.
yeah,
Right. Which is one of my most favorite villains.
correct.
I mean, to be
Yes.
fair, his original name was Nemesis, and then he becomes
Right.
Holocaust. But
Well,
Right.
you know,
And again,
there's games. I play video games, where you can name your character and stuff.
yeah.
And I like the game name Holocaust because it sounds not like on a Nazi kind of crazy right or
I
whatever.
don't know. We're
I just
free.
think it sounds
we're-
I
cool,
disavow.
Like, you're powerful and you can just wipe out people. You're just you're
Yeah, I bet you
godlike.
can.
And,
How many
and
people
I
can
like
you
make-
wipe out, Scott?
exactly. Well, in my imaginary video game worlds, where I create characters that are all powerful.
Couple
And,
million, you
especially
think?
where you can name your character. And I play, yes, a couple million.
Scott,
I play these online games,
you-
and I want to name my characters wherever I want to name them. I've played some games where I cannot name them Holocaust. It's apparently an offensive name, and the game
Yep.
will not let you name that. I'm just
Yeah.
like,
Man,
really? I mean, I get it, but
Yeah.
have you
at
ever
the same
killed
time,
6
I'm naming
trillion
after an
before?
X-Men villain. I'm
No,
not naming
stop
after
it. I
an
disavow
event
that.
happened in history.
I disavow
I
Einbrecht.
disavow.
I took it as far as it could be taken. Like you can't go further than that. Trust me, I know. I push
take
the
it
envelope
the,
as hard as I can, but
I take it the gorilla word gets us in trouble.
probably yes. I mean, it
Fair enough.
definitely is frowned upon by the ADL.
Oh god, man, I still don't understand why a fetish sex group is. Never mind.
Yes, please, no, don't
What?
continue
Wait,
that thought. No, we're done. We're done. We're not talking about that. If you want to talk about that, you go over to the war campaign
no,
chat.
you-
You go over to the war campaign show if you want to talk about that topic. We're not talking about that topic here. I will just laugh for
The
2 more
adult
hours.
diaper league.
Stop it. Back on topic here with the X-Men.
Men, Age of Apocalypse.
You had the introduction of Apocalypse's Horseman before he had taken over all of North America. You have Gideon, Kandra, War, Death, and Sabretooth. Now, with these 5 horsemen...
doesn't quite roll off the tongue very well.
No. Famine and pestilence are nowhere to be found. But all of these guys are sent to do a job. They're interrupted by the X-Men, and basically Sabretooth is left behind and converted by Magneto. I'm not sure what point this particular portion of the story had. Like, why couldn't Sabretooth just be a good guy in this universe? But whatever. I mean, it just... Sure, I'll go with it. But it sets up...
I think, in all fairness, the writers were definitely WWF or WWE fans because
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
the
at the time
90s,
it
of
would have
course
been
they were.
WWF. Because they were. This is absolutely like heel turn exemplified, like
Oh, yeah.
just personified.
Well, this whole block of stories is heel turn personified. Like, all it is
True.
heels turning babyface and babyface turning heels.
Yes.
But anyway, just getting back into it. You see the introduction to the Horsemen. You see the introduction of Rogue and Weapon X to the X-Men and Sabretooth eventually. And then you see the destruction of, a military base where they try and gain access to codes or whatever. I don't know. Like, it is one thing for me. Like, you have control of all the systems except the nukes. They're like, yeah. And why don't you have control of the nukes? Reasons. And you have to send this mutant in to do it. And somehow these other mutants stopped us. But while they stopped us, we destroyed their base of operations because we knew where that was. Why we didn't wait for them to come back and kill them all, I'll never know. But, so...
None of these comic book writing. That's how.
Am I wrong here, Scott? Help me out. I think I'm pretty on point with
Yeah, I think you are.
that.
Didn't think about that. And like you said, they're just trying to get from point A to point B, and
Because
But,
comics.
Yeah.
yeah, because comics.
but it's definitely 48 pages of 90s comics, and once you get into
That's
it,
the thing too with a lot of '90s comics. I've noticed, like they really do try to throw enough action and drama and suspense at you, where it seems like they hope if there are plot holes or things they forget like that, they
Yeah.
hope you're not going to notice that for all the action that's going on, what have you.
right? And for the most
Thankfully,
part,
it
I
doesn't come
think it
up
works.
too often. It doesn't come up too often with '90s book. Yeah, it does. It doesn't come up too often when I've seen '90 books, but enough to where it's definitely a decent percentage where you'll see that.
Well, and you can way past a
Yeah.
few plot holes here and there, as long as it's
Right.
done well.
Right.
Overall,
As complex as this story is to begin with, for them to have a couple
Right.
of plot holes, I think it's pretty good on their part.
Yeah. Now, at one point, they do confront Apocalypse and fail miserably, and this leads to the Scarlet Witch basically just dying early on.
Yeah.
So this is
It's
and
basically just dying. She does
Yeah.
just die.
well, I think
wonder too the reason why they chose to kill her, because freaking Scarlet Witch is she gets freaking badass,
Yeah.
as she gets older and more
Right.
experienced.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was something they were like, well, we gotta kill Scarlet Witch kind of to make it that much more difficult for them to deal with Apocalypse in the future.
right.
Because she
that's
was the most
exactly what I was getting
powerful
ready
on
to
the team
say.
at the time, besides Magneto. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready
Great
to
minds
say.
think
Like,
great minds think alike.
yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, they had to kill her off to tie up the loose end of her
Yep.
just being able to say, "All right, no more Apocalypse, we win."
Yep.
I had it.
Which is pretty
Yeah, because
interesting.
eventually her probability powers fully manifest. She could basically alter reality.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
She just looks at Magneto and says, "Who needs to live to stop this from happening? Xavier, right? Xavier lives. No more Apocalypse. We win. I'm gonna go take a bath now." Like, somebody fix me a drink.
Figure that out. Well,
She blinks Vision into existence because she misses her husband.
Yeah.
We're gonna go take a bath now.
Yeah. But that's this issue, and it sets up the Age of Apocalypse rather nicely in the grand scale.
I think.
But my biggest problem, and this will be kind of a recurring theme for this entire episode, is that it wasn't really necessary. Like, I think X-Men fans just kind of accepted we were thrust into a current day future with Age of Apocalypse, and knowing what happened in Legion Quest, like, you didn't need all of this ancillary material. It's good to have, but
Yeah.
it just created
Largely
more problems
unnecessary.
down the line, I think.
Yeah.
Because again, not everybody's gonna follow this to a T. They're gonna change things up. In this universe, Rogue took the powers of Polaris, but I know for a fact that in one or two books that Rogue appears in going further, that it's not specified that she got her powers from Polaris, and she just kind of is Rogue.
She does use Polaris's powers quite a few times throughout the book. So I think
Oh yeah, yeah. This is definitely canon, but I think that they forgot that she had Polaris's powers and not Miss Marvel's. And
Well, I wondered too if the fact that she has Polaris's powers and Magneto, is Magneto, and the Polaris and Magneto's powers are very similar.
right. Well,
I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but the things that happen between them, I wonder if that
Right.
wouldn't be possible if she didn't have, and that's why they wrote it that way.
well, no, because and we'll talk about this right now. It doesn't matter. Eventually, Rogue and Magneto get into a relationship, guys. Spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't read this 30-year-old series. But 25-year-old, excuse me. But yeah, they're in a relationship in the Age of Apocalypse. But the way he achieves that and actually can touch her is by creating a magnetic field around himself. And that's why they can be
A
together.
full body condom.
It basically has nothing to do with her. The fact that she has magnetic powers just kind of gives them a parallel, And I don't think at this point in '90s comics, Polaris was Magneto's other daughter. I don't think they wrote that in until they planned on taking Wanda and Quicksilver away from him. But that's semantics.
Yeah, it is amazing as it goes on how many kids he eventually has. Like, damn, Magneto got around.
I mean, the dude's like 112 years old at this point, so
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
I mean,
That's right. Taking Bash should just be the end of the X-Men. Yep. How's it going, Danielle? It's good
really
to see
any
you.
comic book.
Long time no see. It's good to see you back. Glad everything is coming along. So that yeah, you got to see my completely legitimate copy of a digital version of Age of Apocalypse. But I do swear I do own all of these books in the physical format. So don't be too pissy. I have backups for things that I have, so I don't have to scan them myself.
Right.
Not to say that I don't have some things that I don't own. I'm just anything that I talk about here, I do definitely own. Let's see. I don't think anybody owns a Detective number 1, but I definitely have a digital copy, or a Detective number 27 rather. But I definitely have a digital copy of it.
Wow. Awesome.
I have a reprint of
Just have a
Detective
digital.
27. I have a reprint of it that I bought for $1.
Wow. That's cool.
Nice.
Reprint is still reprint, still valid.
Yeah, that's so valid. They've recently been putting out the reprints of the original Ninja Turtles, the first issue, which I thought was pretty cool.
Of what?
Man, would you
The
believe
first-
that I never actually got to read the Ninja Turtles comics? My only exposure
Really?
was the cartoons.
Well, I
Wow.
mean, that's
Yeah,
a lot of people's exposure, to be honest.
Yeah. I read like the first 15 or so issues, but I haven't read too much into them. But it is interesting too, like seeing that contrast. If you ever have a chance to read them versus like the cartoon.
I've seen
Oh,
the
yeah.
differences in
Okay.
story.
Okay.
It's,
Cool.
They
And
straight
I
up
keep
kill
watching-
people
They
in the
need to,
comics.
yeah. I'm like, they need to like somebody at least someday needs to make like a, I don't know, even a straight to video animated or live action version. Even if it's like even if the studios are too afraid to do the original comic book version, I want to see someone do it, see it out there, and I can get it and say I have this. Because it is freaking awesome. But it seems like the studios, there's so much that the family angle. So
You'd
the
have to
family
find
friendly
like
show or whatever.
you'd have to find an independent animator and then crowdfund the project as a
Right.
a fan creation.
Well, that too,
and not
you would
sell
still
it.
have to get around.
You'd have to give it
Yeah.
away for
Well, you
free
still
when
have
it
to get
was
around the
created.
legal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you'd have to give it away for free when it was created, and you couldn't offer a copy of it for backing it. Like you would do a
avoid all the
GoFundMe.
legal stuff.
Yeah. So
And that's if the people who own the rights to it still don't fuck with you. Remember that guy that does the Star Wars theory videos?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he created a Darth Vader fan film that came out I think like 2 years ago.
Right.
It's really, really good. It's the best.
Oh yeah, I
best
saw
fan film
that.
I've ever seen. Yeah, it's phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
it's really good.
he's trying to make part 2, and when he was trying to make part 2, Disney came after him and was like, "You can't do this, man." He's like, "What? I didn't make any money off the first one. Why are you messing with me?" And he had to go back and forth with them, and eventually they were like, "Okay, you can do it. Just make sure you make no money off of it." He's like,
Yeah.
"Okay." And so now he's been building. He's been doing like a he's been doing his own stuff or whatever to build money, asking for people, just whatever he gets paid for his videos and what have you, from on YouTube, and to fund the next one. Because the first one I think costs like over $100,000 to make. The next one he said is going to be about $200,000. Because it's going to have Mace Windu, and it's going to have a whole bunch of Jedi and more Sith, and each battle is supposed to take place in it. Yeah, that was pretty awesome, and I feel for him, but Disney's just like, I guess they had nothing better to do except to pick on this poor guy, and thankfully they
Well, it's
they
Disney
level up,
for you.
but yeah.
Well, so that was X-Men Chronicles #1. Who wants to get into the story of X-Men '96, because it definitely shouldn't be me. I'm just gonna
Wait, X-Men 96?
X-Men Annual
It's-
96.
Yeah, it's specifically it's Nate Gray's first X-Men
Okay.
Age of Apocalypse appearance.
Okay, so it's not the one with Havoc and Cyclops, right?
No,
The
that's
first-
Tales
No.
from Age of Apocalypse.
Okay, so yeah, I'm out of order in my trade paperback. So
Yeah.
let's see. I do have the X-Men one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's right here. It's
Yeah, if you want to go ahead.
it's about the middle of the trade.
Yeah, the one with him as a kid on the cover.
Yep.
Okay.
Wait,
It's
the
got
one with him,
Magneto,
the one with him as a kid on
Forge,
the cover?
and
No, the one you're talking about. He's talking about X-Men #1 with the kid on the cover.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
this is
X-Men.
Magneto, Forge, and Nate Gray on the front.
Well,
It's about the middle of the trade.
the back cover was Magneto and Forge.
Well, they present it as the front cover, unfortunately.
Back cover.
Yeah, it was a wraparound cover.
As if it wasn't confusing enough.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
yeah,
This
it's-
is going great,
it's-
folks. I'm so happy
Yeah.
everyone's here for this. X-Men,
the whole
X-Men
thing
Annual
with this
number
issue,
96.
though.
You go ahead, Einbrecht. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, the whole thing with this issue is it's Nate speeding around the landscape, and he's just using his power to try to figure out, what his limits are and whatnot. And he accidentally slips through some portal and ends up on Genosha in almost an alternate reality sort of situation, and it's such a bizarre issue.
It is a really weird issue. Took me a while
Okay,
to
yeah,
understand
so
what was going on.
It's where you have the Sugar Man with the
You
forearm.
caught
right?
up?
Yes, Sugar Man.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, yeah, I got it right here. Cool.
Where's Church?
I forgot he had 2 arms coming out of his head. I thought his extra arms were lower on his body.
How much cocaine were these people on
All of
for
it.
this issue?
All of it. Every last bit of cocaine that they could have. No, I didn't mind it. I like Nate Gray a lot more than I like Blink in this series, because this Nate Gray story, it didn't have anything to do with Age of Apocalypse, but I think it was a pretty well done comic. Like, Sugar Man and Nate Gray are definitely characters who were created. Can you guys? Okay, can you guys hear me? Hello? Ah, shit.
Sugar Man, if I remember and understood it correctly, apes
you
his
guys-
power.
Did you guys hear anything that I said?
No.
No.
Excellent.
You were muted for about the last minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I definitely wasn't getting a drink, but I was also talking. However, I pulled my my mic out and nothing was.
Nice.
So, yeah. But anyway, what I was saying is, I didn't mind this issue so much. It wasn't like it wasn't as bad to me as the Blink stuff. This story stands alone without even having to be part of Age of Apocalypse, really.
Right. Well, I thought it was a good character study too of Nate.
Yeah.
Like his relationship with Forge.
Well, and Forge's relationship with him.
Yes,
Like, that was
very much so.
Because it was two very different relationships, because Forge knew a lot more than he was letting on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this one just kind of goes back and forth between the Age of Apocalypse storyline and our Earth. 616 Earth, Charles is alive Earth. And I'm not mad at it, though it changes nothing and nothing is resolved.
Which shouldn't be possible because it was glassed, but
Because of what?
I will forgive them. It's comic books.
Right.
Wait.
I was saying we shouldn't be able to see 616 because it was glassed.
Oh yeah.
If you remember,
Right.
at the end of Legion Quest, but I will forgive them this because it's comic.
Well, this
books.
is post Age of Apocalypse Earth, or it might be an alternate Marvel reality that's just pretty much ours.
My guess is it wasn't 616. It was an alternate where Genosha also happened.
Yeah. So I don't know. I didn't mind it. It kind of felt futile towards the actual series. Like this is ancillary material. This isn't necessary to enjoy Age of Apocalypse, and it kind of one of the reasons this title as well
It's
as
fluff.
this title as well as most of the rest of this segment falls into the category of not necessary for the Age of Apocalypse. Like, if you just read Age of Apocalypse, you'll get all of this without having to have it spoon-fed to you, if that makes sense.
That's probably why these were nixed from the omnibus, to be entirely honest, because it was ancillary material and they didn't feel it was necessary for the Age of Apocalypse arc.
Right.
Right.
So, see, it's interesting to have somebody that has the omnibus and people that have the trades as opposed to the individual issues,
Exactly.
because I actually use the chronological reading order to collect the Age of Apocalypse when I was hunting it down. And
Yeah, see, all my comic shops in my area are gone, like gone.
Really?
So there is no place for me to buy comics physically. I have to buy online when I want physical copies.
Well, would you say you're more in the small town kind of level, or just?
My hometown has about 80,000 people. I live in a nearby community of almost 6,000, and there's one comic shop in my hometown now, in the community of 80,000.
Well,
Yeah, that's about, I guess, what we are, and I mean, we have one comic shop.
And the vast majority of their sales are manga. Let me make that clear. They don't sell a lot of floppies.
Yeah, well, that's kind of that on their end. That's pretty smart, considering today's market and what sells and what doesn't because of the mainstream. But I mean, they've shown more and more time and time again here lately that manga is just kicking American comics' butt because of their choices of
Well, it's funny too. Sorry, I'm gonna go on a rant. I'm gonna stop myself right there.
Go for it.
No. I'm gonna do a manga rant. It's not relevant. We can
go for it.
Yeah, by all means.
All right, gentlemen. All right. So the bigger issue there is both comic book industries, the Japanese and the Western industries, have gone through booms and dips. But the dips in the manga industry are considerably more minor than the ones in our industry, because Japan focuses on writing good shit, whereas Marvel and DC like to try to catch lightning in a bottle by seeing what the current social trends are. Japan doesn't do that. Japanese creators just write stuff, good stuff.
I got to stop you real quick and correct one thing, in my opinion. I don't think that they follow the current social trends. I think they hire people who are unqualified because, they're cheap and they'll work for nothing. Even though
I think it's a bit of both, to be honest.
It's just how these people's politics and story, because there's no editorial control at Marvel anymore.
Yeah, oh no, and then too, they really seem to hire people based on what race and sex they are, and it doesn't matter what their writing background is. I can't remember her name. The woman who wrote that sci-fi series, I can't remember the name of it recently. That started. It's very SJW. That is getting horrible ratings. They said, and I'm like, well, it's no surprise. And she was writing for Marvel, and then she went off and started writing her own stuff too. She got popular enough to write her own stuff.
Yes, Chad waifus.
What was that?
Chad Middleton in the chat.
Chad with the dab emote, and he said waifus.
Yes, that's why manga is more popular than comics now, because waifus. You're absolutely right.
So she did her own book, and then it got picked up by Sci-Fi and made into a series, and is getting horrible ratings. And this is someone who had no experience writing comics before. Her books
you
at
mean Max
Marvel
Visaggio?
failed. Well, yeah, it's one. Is that who I'm thinking of?
Max Visaggio is the one that got picked up by Sci-Fi, and after like a pilot
Okay.
episode,
I guess
they got
it's it,
their series got canceled or some nonsense.
No, this is someone else because apparently they're on like episode 6 or 7, and they said every episode the ratings just get consistently lower and lower and lower. And actually they said that their ratings for other sci-fi shows, it should have been canceled by now, but for some reason it hasn't yet. Because I think they're trying to be more. Anyway, so it just I'm pretty sure Marvel's doing the same thing where their books keep getting more. Okay, so like a couple years ago, if you sold a book that if you had a book that only sold like a couple of thousand, it used to be I think it was like 30,000 or lower. If you were selling that, it was like maybe 10 years ago though, you would have been canceled. But now they keep dropping it and dropping it and dropping it. I think they're at the point where it's like 10,000 or less is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
you're right.
I assume it's going to be like $12.
It's on permanent hiatus at the moment after something like 5 or 6 episodes, and it was Max Visaggio. So we both had half the details basically.
Right. Wow. And it's just stuff like
I'm
that.
glad I know nothing
they hired
about
her
any of
on
this.
merit, and that was it. Hired her on merit, and that was it. And it's like, we live in an age where talent does not matter anymore in mainstream.
No, it doesn't.
It's really frustrating. It's genuinely frustrating because there are some exceptional writers out there. I would love to see someone like Art get a freaking TV show. Are you kidding me? Right. Give Art a TV show. Give Scott a TV show. Give friggin' EVS a TV show. Give someone that
definitely
can
get Cyberfrog on the air immediately.
Exactly.
I need a Saturday morning cartoon that I can enjoy. Goddammit!
Unfortunately, never gonna happen. Yep.
I'll get cable again for Van Sciver. I'm saying that right now, live on air. I will get cable again if they put Cyberfrog on Saturday morning at 8:00. I will get up every.
I'm not gonna lie. Give us at 7:30 episodes of Cyberfrog.
You give me a Saturday morning cartoon show where Cyberfrog airs at 8:00. I will be up at 7:30 every Saturday to watch cable if they do it. That's all I'm saying.
I'd watch it with my imaginary children too. I'd be up on time for it. But yeah,
I don't know. I might have to leave my kids in the bedroom, and they might have to watch the rerun. I might not be able to. I might not be able to share that with them yet. I mean, Cyberfrog needs to be a good TV show. We can't do it with kid gloves. It can be kid friendly, but we can't do it with kids gloves. I got little ones, man. I still want to see somebody getting punched. But no, me and my boy would definitely watch Cyberfrog together. See, Danielle would buy cable to watch it. EVS could single-handedly save the cable network industry. Comcast, I know you're listening to me. Get the fuck on it.
It would just be one channel.
Yeah. Anyway, getting back to the Age of Apocalypse, we have made it to the point in the reading.
I was going to say real quick. Ethan's wore a wig before. We can have him put a wig on.
Mm-hmm.
And say that he's a woman now. He's trans or whatever.
Right.
Whatever
you need
to get into the industry now. Whatever they need to accept him now in their fold.
And then when he starts making the money, he can take the wig off and go, surprise!
Surprise, motherfucker!
I got you, bitch!
Got you by the paycheck!
I'm just waiting for Trump to start wearing a wig and claiming to be the first woman president just to piss off Hillary.
I have the best boobs. Anyway, back to Age of Apocalypse before we get too far off the rails. We've reached the point in the storyline where we come to Tales from Age of Apocalypse, numbers 1 and 2. Or starring X Factor and starring I think it's just Tales of Age of Apocalypse 1 and 2, right? Are they numbered like
Tales
that?
from Age of Apocalypse 1 and 2.
Well, they're just
which in
tales from Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah, it
They're not
stars
numbered,
Cyclops, Havoc, Mr. Sinister, and their father.
Yeah.
Their biological father.
Dark Beast.
Dark Beast. Yep. What's his father's name again? Star Lord or
Chris?
No. It's
I know it's Christopher Summers.
Lord.
I was making a Star Lord joke. Calm down.
Right.
So
his code name was Corsair.
Corsair.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's what I was trying to figure out.
I knew it was a pirate term. I
Summers,
couldn't
but-
remember which one it was.
Right.
Anyway,
A space pirate.
even though so much changed in the world, and mutants became the Homo superior above humans and started to wipe out human existence. Somehow, the Summers kids were basically they had the same origin. They were knocked off of a plane by their father with a parachute to be saved from an alien spacecraft. However, things took a slight turn because without Xavier, one galactic entity didn't get quelled as easily as it should have, and instead of encountering the Shi'ar, Corsair had a little bit of trouble. But anyway, before we get to that, you're introduced to Cyclops and Havoc and Mr. Sinister and Dark Beast pretty much early on in this book, and the main storyline here is how Scott and Alex react to one another, and how they regard Mr. Sinister, but also it introduces you to the caste system that we were talking about earlier. You learn that Scott and his brother are both what they call prelates, and that's kind of an upper echelon of the mutant culture. They're allowed to enter the nightclubs and stuff like Warren Worthington's Heaven and all that other good shit. So I don't know. You guys can take it from there, but that's kind of the general consensus of how this introduces itself.
Yeah, that's.
Like you guys,
I don't know. This was one of the ones where it started getting kind of. I don't know. I felt these two issues were kind of droll.
I actually really
Like
the
there were
story.
some interesting parts, but really, yeah,
Yeah.
it was all right. I mean, the story was fine. I don't know.
You
I had
probably
a hard
really
time
like
getting
the
into
Blink.
this part.
You probably really like the Blink books, didn't you, Eric? You've just been being quiet this whole time.
No, not really.
I like the Blink books, but for the reason that I'm a bit of a she's a waifu. Let's just say it.
Okay. We're not judging. We're not kink shaming you today, especially after we've done way too much kink shaming today.
Oh, pocket pussy! What were you
Stop.
thinking?
We're not. I wasn't gonna name him. Damn it, Einbrecht. Damn it. I wasn't gonna name him. I was just gonna play it. Damn it. I tried. Leave it to Einbrecht to always say the worst thing possible.
Which is weird because you think it would be a novel, bro.
I guess Denny's not here to fuck up the show, so I gotta pick up the slack.
There you go. But Scott, where do you fall on this series, on these two books? Because we'll talk about them both together. To just kind of speed things along.
I mean, on this one, it has some good setup for, it gets into, kind of establishing, Angel's nightclub. That he's kind of like the neutral guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, people just come in and hang out if they're, like you said, they're a certain level or whatever, and he kind of holds like things down where you're not supposed to fight in his bar.
No fights in heaven.
To hang out and whatnot, but. Yeah, in heaven, exactly. And then they established he didn't become an X-Men. He's just this rich guy who runs this bar for everybody, and which I thought was interesting. But it's kind of funny though. I mean, I guess a lot of stuff came after this series, but you'll see that in a lot of other stories, which is kind of funny. How there's this one guy that runs a bar or a stronghold or something that's just neutral, where everybody can just come and hang out and there's no fighting and whatnot.
Yeah.
Like they did that in the Constantine movie. They did that in a couple other TV shows and stuff like that. Like there was something in there in Buffy. My wife's a fan of the Buffy series, so. But
It's a very
yeah,
Western.
and
To call back to last night's show a little
yeah,
bit, it's
yeah,
a
it
very
definitely was.
Western trope.
Yeah, you're
Very
right.
much so.
Yeah,
The neutral
West
ground where
Side
no
thing.
one's supposed
Yeah.
to fight is definitely a Western media
Well, the
trope.
saloon.
Right.
The saloon is.
Yeah,
I
another
mean,
area
there's
is
always a
dictated
fight there, and I
multiple
think
way and stuff.
Yes.
I think it kind of gives you a little bit of a precursor to the fact that when you say there's no fights in heaven, there's going to be a fight in heaven. You can't just give us that big of a Chekhov's gun and not fire it.
Right.
But the second part of the story kind of goes into the Summers boys' actual dad. Now, we mentioned earlier
Mhm.
that Corsair, he's a space pirate. He was really big in the Shi'ar and the regular universe. But in this universe, before he reached the Shi'ar, guess who reached the Shi'ar first? Anybody? That would be the Brood. That would be the Brood.
Yes, sir.
So for any old X-Men fans, this is where the Brood come into Age of Apocalypse. They had basically
The
pulled them
X-Men didn't deal with the Queen in this reality, so
right.
yeah.
So, and I'm gonna pull the panel up on screen where it's the reason I made the Star-Lord joke. But it's the page where you see him confront the group that Death sent against him or whatever, and Death or Mr. Sinister or whoever. No, Death is not in this one as much. It's Mr. Sinister and Dark Beast. But you see the group that's sent after him, and he's starting to attack them with a sword, but he just really looks like Peter Quill in this little montage here. So I was just looking at him, I was like, he looks like Star-Lord with a face mask down in this top panel. So that
Yeah,
was.
I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty bad.
But I mean, it's really small. So I mean, I'm not taking anything away from it. But anyway, eventually Scott and Havoc have to go looking for their dad, and they find him. But because of a storm, another very common trope, the storm that keeps the enemy sheltered with his captors, and they become friendly. Because of the storm, they're all like shuttled into a church for safety or whatever. And Havoc starts to really kind of bond with this guy who's claiming to be their father, even though Scott doesn't really trust him. Like, he wants to help him, but he doesn't trust him. And he has some kind of animosity against him because deep down I think he does trust him or whatever. And he's just pissed off that he never came before this. Anyway, they hole up for a little while, and Sinister goes looking for him, but eventually the Brood kind of overtakes Corsair, and he attacks Scott. Scott has to kill him. Havoc doesn't understand, and it kind of wraps up there. But I really like the story. It wasn't as exciting, but it was really good for character building. Because it's really important to understand why Scott feels the way he feels when Age of Apocalypse proper starts. Like, as opposed to the X-Men book, this actually did feel relevant. I'm not saying it's worth reading before you read Age of Apocalypse. Again, you don't need to. But if you are going to read anything that we talk about on this list, read Tales from Age of Apocalypse, the two books. Because again, this touches on the old head X-Men fan and goes back and talks about the Brood and what happened with them in this reality. And, goes on and basically cleans up the Summers story. And also establishes the ranking system that is used pretty much without any explanation in Age of Apocalypse proper. Like you see words thrown around, but it's not spelled out like it is in these two books.
Yeah, you really get to see how the caste system works in these two books in particular. There is a more building on it later on down the road, but it's much further into the Age of Apocalypse storyline that you see that stuff.
Right. Like these two books actually feel okay coming before the series proper. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought it was like you said, it was important setup for establishing things with Cyclops and where he's at in his past, and
It also
his
gives
feelings
you a
towards-
really powerful motivator for why Havoc hates Scott or hates
Mhm.
Cyclops as much as he does
Right.
in the
Yeah,
later issues.
that reason. Yeah.
Like this gives you rather than it just being an arbitrary "I'm your brother, we're rivals, I hate you." This gives him a powerful hatred for Scott that is rooted in actual writing.
Right, and I think that fuels too the I mean, and we're jumping ahead a little bit, but Havoc ends up becoming I mean, he's a pretty bad dude in this. He's not the Havoc remembered
Right.
before, and I think this is kind of the foundation of that twistedness and
I think so. I agree. Like I think this does a good job of the one connection he had, he made an emotional connection with who he believed was his real father, and
Mhm.
yeah, I totally buy that.
I mean, what would you do if you saw the image of your father just get blown away in front of you?
By your brother, no less.
Yeah,
Like
by your brother. Exactly.
patricide. Your brother
Yep.
commits patricide in front of you.
I mean,
that's.
I mean,
insane.
if we're in the Age of Apocalypse, I've probably seen worse by then. Honestly, let's be realistic here. I mean, let's just not
Definitely,
split
but
hairs.
I mean,
You've known this guy for 48
You're
hours,
not
and
wrong.
you're gonna hate the guy that's kept you alive
Right.
for 20 years over it. No, I don't think so. But
Right.
I mean, it is
Mhm.
based in story at that point, and they do at least attempt to give it a reason. I think that this is a little
Yeah,
bit weak
you're
in
not
that
wrong.
regard. No, I hate you. Even though you've taken care of me and kept me safe for 20 years, and you've been my only friend and companion.
Oh, it's
No, I hate you. You killed our dad. We don't even know he was our dad. Sinister said he was our dad. You believe Sinister?
yeah.
So,
The weird thing about it though is my brain just shut off. I don't know where I was going.
oh, excellent.
Well, I was going to say too that I mean, in terms of a dad, it's like Sinister is the closest thing they've had for a father for however long it's been,
Right.
and maybe that's kind of why they might believe him or do believe him, or at least one of them does. I don't know.
I mean,
The Einstein hair on Stan Lee though.
Yeah, I don't dislike the story by any means. I think that it's kind of a weak way to develop that hatred. Just that one portion of it. Now having it deeper, like they should have gone back and shown ways that Scott has always kind of left his brother in the shadow. They did mention it a couple of times, but
Yeah.
to try and make that the crowning moment where Havoc's like, "I'll kill you," it felt a little weak.
Yeah, no, I think it's just the tipping point.
Especially because we find out later on that Cyclops is the reason that Wolverine only has one hand, or Weapon X only has one hand, and that Weapon X is the reason Cyclops only has one eye left.
Has one eye. Yep.
Yeah.
Because they had
You can see the claw marks on Cyclops' eye.
Right.
Wolverine slashed his eye out. Yeah.
Yeah, because Wolverine was rescuing Jean from the pits, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that kind of touches on the love triangle there, because Summers actually did have feelings.
Yeah, I
for
love how
her.
even even in this dimension there's that love triangle.
But you'll see that in Age of
It's reality
Apocalypse
again.
proper again.
You have to have that love triangle.
Right.
Now, X-Men #1, it's a really fun story, but again, just like the other X-Men comic, like, it could just kind of stand alone. Like, this could have been a what-if book. You know, what if Cable was created in the Age of Apocalypse? More so than a tie-in for this series.
What if he was Sinister's creation, no less?
So is Cable.
I mean, true, but without the technovirus to sabotage him from Apocalypse.
Now, one thing that I will say is that it's very apparent here that they've always kind of had the same game plan when it came to hyping a character. Because even after Age of Apocalypse, X-Men was supposed to be the hottest thing since fucking white bread. But it just never happened. It didn't work. And that's why we have so much material. Like, X-Men and Blink were supposed to be the new thing. And neither one of them went where I think X-Men wanted them to go. So that's why you just don't hear about these characters anymore, even though they seem so important to such a big event in the mid-90s. Like, people aren't going to accept a female Nightcrawler no matter how much you shove it down their throat. People aren't going to accept a flawless Cable. This is basically a time bomb. Because we like our flawed Cable that's basically a time bomb. and that became apparent shortly after this series. But you really do see like a push for characters all the way even back in the 90s. And this is an example of it. Because let's be completely honest with ourselves. Aside from being a giant MacGuffin, how important was Nate Gray to this overall story?
Not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a genetically engineered weapon that was supposed to stand against Apocalypse.
Right.
And you're right. Other than that, I mean, what's his purpose afterwards? And other than just a.
Funny enough, his most compelling story happens after the Age of Apocalypse in the Onslaught saga.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But again, that's another.
Onslaught.
That's another storyline where again he becomes a MacGuffin, and then they just can't do anything with him. Like it's the same thing with
just call him MacGuffin, man.
Yeah, it's the same thing with Magneto's Joseph persona, in my opinion. Like that was awful.
The Joseph persona was a weird thing, but I did like that they made Magneto into a character again. I just wish I'd done it a bit differently, but oh well.
They were trying to bring back the love triangle from Age of Apocalypse. Gambit, Rogue, and Joseph. Joseph. But sorry, that was creepy.
One of these things is not like the other.
But no, this book is so damn corny because it did something that Marvel really liked to do in books back in the 90s, and they just kind of had Stan Lee breaking through the fourth wall, explaining all of the exposition. He was Exposition Lee. And goddamn, it was awful. But I read it all in Stan Lee's voice. Like that's the fucked up part of it.
God. The Einstein hair on him, though. What the hell?
How else are you supposed to read that?
But anyway, this book is basically 22 pages of, hi, we're going to introduce Nate Gray as a child. We're going to show you how powerful he is. We're gonna show you how inept Sinister is with his own creation, and then we're gonna put him back in stasis with a teddy bear. Okay, bye. It's a very cute
I
story.
really did not understand the point of this.
it's a very cute story.
in relation
Only
to the
point-
rest of the bugs.
It just
That's,
The only point I
okay,
saw
I'll
was
give
to
you that.
show that he's a badass even as a kid, and then
Yeah.
you know, like I say, you put him back in his places and save him for later when we really need him.
But I mean,
Let
you
him
already
continue to
know.
grow up inside of his pod.
I think this is more a critique of the comic book Herald than anything, but you already know how badass he is because you said to read X-Men Annual number
Right.
80 of 96
Right.
before you read this book.
Right.
So I'm like, we already know he's badass. Why are you telling us again? Do you think
That's
we've
true.
forgotten 4 comics? You think I can't keep up?
Right.
You think I can't keep up?
I wanted to. I mean, I kind of think too is just to show a little bit more of that relationship between him and Sinister, and try to kind of show this. You don't think of Sinister as a dad, and it kind of has that vibe to him a little bit in this. How he handles Nate and
Well, also how he loses
know.
his patience with him, like how a real
Yeah.
father would. And,
Yep.
like it's.
So I thought it was interesting in that aspect, but
Yeah,
otherwise,
I agree.
There's not much point to it. Yeah.
Does it feel to anybody else like they're trying to shoehorn Sinister into basically being the Magneto of the Age of Apocalypse instead of just being Sinister?
A little bit.
A little bit.
Because they're giving
It
him so
feels
much
more like
more
they're trying to-
compassion. Like they're giving him that level of compassion that Magneto had for the what were the outcast mutants called?
Morlocks.
Yes, because Magneto
Yeah,
and the Morlocks.
Say it again, Morlocks. Yeah,
Morlocks.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the Morlock storyline, so that's.
But that's
And the mutates and the Reavers. Sorry.
But that's what I'm getting at. Magneto was the guy that picked up the ugly strays, and Professor Xavier took in the pretty ones. And that's kind of the way I always saw the X-Men growing up because of the X-Men TV show and, where I started reading X-Men in the 90s.
Xavier's thing was about hiding in plain sight early on.
Right.
Children that he could. Yeah.
But, I mean, it just kind of made him seem like a posh asshole where you got Magneto over here being portrayed as the villain, but he's the motherfucker that took in Mystique. He's the guy that took in the Blob and Avalanche and, the Morlocks and all of the quote-unquote dangerous mutants and really only sent them to do things that, he needed them to do for them because, well, they were outcast. And it feels like they're
but
trying
Xavier
to put...
did take in Nightcrawler.
Well, I mean he
if you
spoke
look
German.
at a lot of the stuff that, I get what they were doing with Magneto. They were trying to make it seem like his rage from his treatment at the hands of humans in Nazi Germany, how they experimented on him and stuff like that, how they it's meant to portray him as exclusively a villain, but he's more anti-hero than he is villain, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it be the idea of not necessarily a villain has to have these aspects to be good, but a lot of the best villains I think have these where there's a humanity side to them. They're not just all gotta kill everything or wipe whatever. So Magneto has this humanity to him where he's trying to help mutants. He's just trying to do it in a very dictatorship kind of way. And
the creation of Avalon and all that.
Yeah. Like he's trying to give him a home and a purpose and all this, and trying to make animal superiors give them what he thinks they deserve more. They just because they are powerful, and that they should have more of a foothold on the world. And there's moments where Magneto goes back and forth, like, should I be this, controlling and straightforward and what have you, or should I sympathize for the humans and respect them at the same time? He's not quite Apocalypse. Apocalypse is just control and survival of the fittest and all this, and it's that back and forth I think that makes Magneto pretty interesting. Like more like the Darth Vader kind of level too, where Vader was he seemed very evil at first, but then he found his humanity as the story went on, and
Right.
No, he wasn't. Like you said, he's more of an anti-hero. He became more of the anti-hero. He questioned things, and there's this kind of this gray area with him. And definitely, I think with Magneto too. And
There's something to say though about a villain who just legitimately just gets pure pleasure out of being horribly evil.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I also kind of a lot of times that happens. It comes about by something traumatic happened in their youth, like Magneto. I mean, he was raised in the, like we were talking about earlier. We touched on World War II. He was raised during the Holocaust. He was raised during the the Nazi times and the concentration camps and all that. He went through all that. He saw his family get brutally murdered and all these things during that time, and he went through all this shit. And but I think that plays into a lot with his his darkness, and that he doesn't want to be treated like that again. He doesn't want to be treated that way as a mutant for sure. He's trying to keep that from happening with other mutants.
Real quick, before we get into the Blink saga, let's briefly touch on the X-Men Chronicles #2. I don't have that issue to pull up, and I apologize. Well, actually, I should find it. I should really find it so that because there's some really cool shit. So let me get that.
Is that the one that starts off with?
Yeah, with
Magneto
Weapon X.
saving
No,
Kelly.
Weapon X. No, Weapon X and
the other one.
leaving.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're going to warn the humans, basically.
Well, they don't really mention that in this, but yeah. So
Art in this one is really strange too. I thought this. I mean, I like it, but it's just so wild and
yeah, and
very different from the rest of
They-
Age of Apocalypse.
they introduce a character like this is.
Ian
This is
Churchill.
sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying Ian Churchill's the penciler. Yeah, it's an almost X-Men meets 80s hair metal sort of feel to it.
Yeah, right. Good
Now-
description there.
Yeah, I want to start off by complaining that they
The
introduce a
coloring of
character.
Iceman is kind of off-putting, though.
It's very greenish, and I don't like it. It
Yes,
makes
I
him
didn't-
look like a toxin.
I didn't want to say anything. It's cool.
Sorry.
Okay, fucking assholes. No. The thing that pisses me
Motherfucker
off,
has jaundice or some shit.
I'm gonna kick you out of this
That would
goddamn
make
call.
him yellow.
I am not
That
fucking
would
around.
make him yellow.
I will kick everybody out, and I will just sit here and bitch and raise hell. I don't get to complete what I'm trying to say. God damn it! This book pisses me off because we're supposed to be calling Logan Weapon X, and they introduce a character named Wolverine, and I was confused. So I read this book 3 goddamn times before I realized that it wasn't a mistake. It was just a character named Wolverine who wasn't fucking Wolverine, and it made me so goddamn mad.
Yeah, I had to reread that page like 7 times. Like, wait, what's going on? I don't see Wolverine anywhere in this. What the fuck?
But anyway, the whole purpose of this
man.
book, I'm gonna break it down.
This is
and
supposed to take place before or later. You said it's supposed to kind of. It goes back and forth, right? This is like the past and
long hair Magneto is
in the
during
future.
in the cusp of the Age of Apocalypse, like during the actual age. The first X Chronicles was before he started taking over North America. Like during the takeover
That's
of
right.
North America was the first X Chronicles, and this one is after he's taken over. Because you see that Wolverine only has the one arm. Again, we say that was lost by lost to Cyclops when he took one of Cyclops' eyes. All their costumes have changed; they're not the uniform costumes, and that's kind of a callback to the original Uncanny X-Men, like the X-Men #1, the first Uncanny X-Men #1 back in the 70s, when the X-Men all had the same costumes and Beast was still human. And before, 30 years of X-Men history happened, and this is kind of a push forward to the X-Men of the 90s, the more extreme X-Men, all that shit.
Yeah.
And
Are you on
All the
Blink or are you on
pouches.
Chronicles? You're
I'm on
right?
Chronicles 2, yeah.
Chronicles number 2.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Yeah,
skipped
so
it accidentally.
It was in the book.
But yeah, this is where they introduce a Wolverine character that's not Wolverine. Weapon X and Jean Grey leave the team, and then you find out that Rogue and Magneto are bumping uglies, and then Gambit finds out, and then Rogue leaves Gambit to die, and then Gambit leaves the team. But this is, again, the X-Men Chronicles, they set up a lot of stuff, and they explain to you why Weapon X and Jean Grey aren't part of the X-Men. It explains to you why Gambit has his own team, Gambit and the Externals, and so on and so forth. Like, so these are really good character elements, and I feel like these two books pay homage to the evolution of the X-Men over the course of their life to this point, while tying it all into the Age of Apocalypse. However, there's so much filler in this particular, like in these books that we're reviewing tonight. Like, there's just so much exposition and filler and tying up of loose ends and stuff like that it takes away, I think, from the overall experience. So if you're experiencing Age of Apocalypse for the first time, again, I wouldn't put any of these comics that we're talking about tonight in your reading order. I would read the books, either number one, number one, number one, number one, number two, number two, number two, number two, that kind of thing, or I would read them as per the release order date. But otherwise, if you want the full experience and you want to go get all of the backstory and have those loose ends tied up, then you come back and you look at some of these books. Is that a fair?
Yeah, you want to have a tight end. We could just ask a certain somebody.
Oh my God! Again, another one. Fantastic. It's a gold star for Ayrton right there.
What
Bombs
happened?
tonight.
No, if you missed it, you missed
You're
it.
welcome.
We're not doing it again. It's over. It's over.
Oh.
I apologize, Scott. I don't know what came into these degenerates today. I'm a good boy. I didn't do nothing.
Did Ayrton accidentally talk about neighbors again?
No.
No, just made a pegging joke.
Oh, see?
Motherfucker. Excuse me. I need to get somebody on the line real quick. If you'll bear with me real quick, Ayrton, I got somebody you should talk to real quick, if you don't mind. Very important caller.
Why not Einbrecht?
No. Actually, Einbrecht,
He
you should
started
listen in on
this.
this. Both of you. The president has something to say.
You're fired.
We've been evicted.
So
We've been evicted.
Do we get that 600 a week?
no, I'm contesting your unemployment. I'm gonna tell him you quit.
Aw.
I'm gonna tell them you were essential and you quit, so they'll charge you $600 a week. How about that?
Damn it.
Anyway, getting back to it, let's jump into Blink number 1 through 4. We can just talk about these as a cohesive unit.
Do we have to?
That's 2.
Can I say something real quick about Chronicles 2?
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the things I think is weird is Oak's hairstyle in that one. How much different? I guess, like you said, this is kind of more low in the past, but is it that much in the past? Because she has this very 80s kind of Mad Max,
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah,
hairstyle,
the Mad
this
Max mullet.
Like, this explosion mullet. It's like the top's all poof, and then the bottom's just straight and long hair.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just throws
Makes
me
you
off
wonder
every
how
time.
they get that much hairspray during the Age of Apocalypse.
They just use blood, Eric.
Exactly. Yeah.
But how does she keep it so white?
Okay.
Anyway,
The white blood
Yeah, I
cells.
don't know either.
No, the art
I
style.
always thought the white was
definitely-
from her powers, like,
Well,
but I'm not for sure either.
if you look at
Like when she uses it, it makes her hair white.
if you look at Chronicles #1 and the art style of it, and you look at Chronicles #2 and the art style of it, again, you'll see what I was talking about.
Mhm.
The art styles aren't representative of the Age of Apocalypse. The art styles are representative
Mhm.
of 70s Uncanny X-Men and then 90s,
Mhm.
X-Men and all that. Like, I think it's an homage thing and a way to kind of tie it in together and really cement that lock into the Age of Apocalypse. It was kind of a creative decision, and I could be completely wrong. It could have just ended up that way because of the creative team.
Oh,
But
that
to me, it feels
Right.
like they're paying homage to the different eras of comics. But that takes us to Blink #1 through 4. So, for the people that like Blink, I'm going to make a few direct comments on these, and I'm going to let you guys talk about it for the most part, and then I'm going to tell you why you're wrong. I'm joking. I'm joking, by the way. But this book really
He's
is
not
in
joking.
tune. I'm not. Is really in tune with the hashtag that Ayrton is. These women have no organs, and we're okay with that. So if you look on your screen now, you'll see the cover of Blink #1 and the very first page of Blink #1, and you will understand that as comic book fans, we appreciate this. It's not like we're looking at it in the sense of a pornography, but we're okay with our women having no organs in comic books. It's fine with us. Stop trying to change it. Draw the womans the way the womans have
exaggerated art
always
is
been
part
drawn.
of the magic of these things.
Well, I don't even think she's that. I don't even think she's that exaggerated. I've seen worse. Like I think Jason Scott Campbell does even more of a tiny waist and that whole thing than what we see here. But
J. Scott Campbell borders on unrealistic. It's
Yeah.
the issue I have with his art. I like his art, but his women are too thin.
But
it's still pretty solid art. Like, I will say that.
I think so too. I mean, I'm like a huge fan of his, but I do, a lot of his stuff I do like.
yeah, this is
His
what Ayrton,
Black Cats. Oof.
Yeah.
this is what Ayrton talks about when he says make women in comics sexy again. We don't want frumpy black cat. Okay, we don't want her. Take her back.
No.
Take her back. We don't want it.
Whose idea was it to give fucking Felicia Hardy, one of the hottest women in all of Marvel history, a fupa? I don't want that shit.
The Karens are rising.
Uh-huh.
They're speaking
The
to all the
Karen-
managers
the
at
Karen.
once. They've
Well, I mean,
organized a mailing
that's
campaign.
actually Anita Sarkeesian's. That's actually Anita Sarkeesian's full-time job, being a Karen.
No, you don't understand. You
She's
don't
the
understand,
ultimate Karen.
Einbrecht, you don't understand. They've organized a letter writing campaign. They're calling people in the phone book alphabetically. They until they get a manager. Like they ask people when they call them out of the white pages, "Excuse me, are you a manager? Where are you a manager at? I need to speak to you." But anyway, if you guys would like to
I
discuss,
know you're joking, but
if you guys would like to discuss,
It's feeling that way though. Like they call someone up, ask them if they're a manager, and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm a manager," and then they have a checklist that go down. Does your company go by this and that and this and this? And
right.
do you
It's-
do you discriminate for this
kinda-
and this and that? And
It's kind of like playing
damn.
guess, kind of like playing Guess Who with a major bitch.
Right? Is your workforce predominantly white male?
No, click, 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 click. You're Walgreens. Anyway, who wants to start off the explanation of what Blink 1 through 4 is? Because it damn sure ain't gonna be me this time.
I'll let Scott do it.
Okay.
It's
Let's
What am I doing now?
you give us
just
give us a walkthrough on
Give
Blink
us the
1 through
rundown.
4, like just the baseline story. Like what did it boil down to for you?
Kind of a lot of just showing off Blink and what her abilities are, and I mean that's a lot what I got from. She was a Murloc, right? Am I mistaken? Like her.
Clarice in the main line.
You're asking the
I
wrong
don't
person.
know.
I never gave a shit about her. Like of the next man.
Hmm.
I think she was created
Well,
for this, wasn't she? Because they made a big deal out of her like being
Right.
showing up in
Yeah,
Exiles
well,
after.
I know. I think
Her first appearance was Uncanny X-Men number 317 in October 1994. So she was made for.
She was made for this event then, because that's
Yeah.
one of the
She was made
the
for this
lead
event.
up issues, isn't it?
well, I know. Well, I know. Because
I believe she was incorporated into the Morlocks after Age of Apocalypse, but she was
Okay,
also
okay.
with the Exiles. I think.
Yeah, that was her
time jumping
premiere
reality
after the
hopping
Age of
team.
Apocalypse.
Okay.
After Age of Apocalypse, she premiered in Exiles
Well, I
number
know
1.
too that.
Yeah.
I know too. I think Joe Madureira, as far as X-Men, I think he started with Age of Apocalypse, if not just right before it. And
All these
I'm pretty
artists
sure
and-
he co-created Blink, if I remember right. He designed her look.
I wouldn't be
So I
surprised.
think he's a big part of her design. I don't know if they just thought this character up and had him design it, or if it was more like, hey, I got an idea for this character for this alternate reality.
I need a
her name's Blink and
Nightcrawler
so
except girl and purple.
forth. She's different enough from Nightcrawler. Like Nightcrawler fights with swords and teleports, where she creates portals and throws these kind of. Which that's the only thing too. I don't quite get. She has these spears she throws, these mini spears, and that creates her portals. And I'm like, so does she generate these things, or is she not really a mutant and she just makes these things?
Her power is those weird crystal things are.
Yeah. Does she form them herself?
They're like
She forms them.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're kind of like Thor's hammer. They help her focus her powers, but she doesn't have to use them.
Ah.
They explained
gotcha.
in 1 through 4 just briefly that her powers work in 3 different ways, but she doesn't really know how.
Right.
Like because she forgot how to control her powers, she just uses them instinctually for the most part until later on in the story. But no, to just kind of go over the base storyline, like Blink basically doesn't do what she's supposed to on a mission, and she gets chastised for it. And then you kind of have your Jubilee moments, what I call it.
Right.
Because
You're not my real dad anyway, and runs off.
Right. And when she does that, she decides she's going to go after Apocalypse all by herself because that's what you do in this world. In that, she discovers a portal to the negative zone because an army led by Blastar and his empire are coming to take over the world, and they're gonna be back. They're retreating for now, but they'll be back. You'll see us again in a couple of weeks or something. And Blink follows them and lands in the negative zone with amnesia, and that's issue 1 pretty much. Issue 2 is kind of an introduction into what's going on in the negative zone. There's a guy who you really don't know who it is. Spoiler alert, he ends up being a nihilist because the writers at Marvel said, we have to tie all of Marvel's back history into Age of Apocalypse. We can't just leave Sleeping Dogs Lie. Like, we can't leave anything on the table. We got to use every reference we possibly can. Give me a 4-issue series and somehow work a nihilist into it.
Well, I think it's cool too to kind of show you where Miles is at, in this time.
Yeah, he's been overthrown by a guy named.
What happened to this guy?
The Great Annihilus.
I mean, you got an Apocalypse. Annihilus is so powerful, and Apocalypse is so powerful, and it's like, well, what happened to these other powerful guys after Apocalypse took over? Oh, that was kind of cool.
No, it was. I think it was also kind of one of those situations where like, what haven't we explained yet? We could explain more things. We haven't exposited enough
Right.
already. Let's do more exposition.
Explain all the things.
But the guy she meets and go ahead.
I was gonna say I love the in this one I love the Fist of the North Star version of Wolverine that comes into it.
Oh
You know what I'm
yeah.
talking about? Or,
Let me pull that up.
Yeah.
his
That's
armor
it.
is so much like Kenshiro's. I'm just like, holy shit, it's Fist of the North Star Wolverine.
Let's see. Is he in issue 2?
Yeah, I think it's issue
Yeah.
Yeah.
Page
The other one, Nihilist.
17, I think,
Okay. All right.
in the digital.
Okay. Yeah. Let me.
Just again, this whole story has that kind of, heavy metal magazine, post-apocalyptic Mad Max feel to it. So I guess it's fitting to have a Kenshiro Wolverine.
Right.
It's not enough goggles though, or pouches.
Right.
The full page spread is what you're talking about.
No, it's not a full. I mean, there's a lot on the pages, but it's not a full page spread.
I'm trying to figure out. You said blank number 2.
A lot of action. Yeah, I think that's 2.
Hold on.
No, I see it. Never mind.
Okay.
I got it.
He's like looking back at Blink.
Page 20, Ayrton. You fuck.
Okay. Well, in the reader it says 17.
All right.
Yeah, it's a flashback.
Yeah. Look, it kind of looks like the comedian and Wolverine had a love child that neither one of them were happy about.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
I mean, neither one of them would be happy about that.
do you think they would share the cigar after they did it, or would they both have their own, or would they fight over the cigar? Like, how would that work?
You can't share a cigar. That's
Wolverine
too big
would
to share a cigar.
Wolverine would definitely chop the comedian's head off and be like, "We'll never speak of this again."
And he would smoke the cigar through the comedian's neck or something?
Pretty much.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm down with it. I just wanted to know the logistics of that. I figured you guys could help me.
Well, of course.
It's his Duke Nukem moment. Instead of shitting down the throat, he smokes out of the throat.
Now,
Yeah.
let's be completely honest here. My main problem with this series is it's a good story. Don't get me wrong. It is a good standalone 4-issue story. You take everything about Age of Apocalypse out of it, and you put it anywhere else, and you take Annihilus out of it, and it's fantastic. I just,
I do agree.
if I want to read Age of Apocalypse, this is not what I want.
Right.
Yeah.
But-
like I said, it's
like
too
This
outside
this
that
purple
box.
bitch is traveling through hell. What does this have to do with Age of Apocalypse?
Well, let's just talk about the logistics of
Like
it,
I said,
right?
It feels like more of a showcase of showing, like,
After
somewhat giving her kind of a story more so than what we see, and then showing off her abilities.
Well, it's one of those things. If
Introducing
you go
a bunch
back
of
to
characters that don't really play into Age of Apocalypse as a whole, so
right,
yeah, well, if you go back to issue 1, that first splash page says, "You win. She's back. Blink."
Mm.
Who was asking for this?
you
We're-
win. I guess there's people that.
no,
I'm
there
a
was,
fan of Blink.
yeah, there
But
was,
I mean, at the same time, I like seeing her just with the X-Men. I don't have to see a side story that's all about her.
yeah. I mean, this
Yeah,
is basically
she was
Blink meets
fine
Tomb Raider.
enough.
Yeah. Well, the things that with Blink that I liked most about her is this kind of sister brother relationship she has with Sabretooth in Age of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And I think her ability is pretty cool when she uses it the right way. And her look, I like her look. Her look is interesting to me, not like on a sexual level, but on a cool design level. I thought she was cool.
Look, even if it
And
was
you
cool
know,
on a sexual level for you,
she
that
has
wouldn't
this
be the
fun.
that wouldn't be
She
the
has
most
this fun
embarrassing sex thing today.
Well, she has this fun innocence to her, which I like. And she can be a badass. So you know,
No,
one of my favorite parts in Age of Apocalypse, jumping ahead a little bit again, but
okay.
is when she opens that, coming through a portal, and there's that, I can't remember his name. There was that really big guy coming through the portal behind him because they were just in a battle and they're getting out of there, and she closes the portal on him and it kills him. It cuts off like his whole upper body. I was like, damn, that shit's hardcore.
Oh yeah.
I love that she thought of that. She was like, just close the portal and he's dead.
Now, the whole storyline basically revolves around her leading a revolution against Blastar. And let me just get off on another rampage real quick. Fucking Blastar, really? Blastar. That's the name of your fucking character? Give me a goddamn break.
Right.
You named your character after his gun. Meet his
Yeah,
brother,
he's,
Revolver.
Like
Blaster is
taser.
unfortunately a product of fucking 70s and 60s Marvel.
His second cousin, Curling Iron. What the fuck? Oh,
I
Jesus
couldn't be
Christ.
any worse than my buddy from high school's fairy character in D&D. Named him Keybaster.
Nice. You know what my
Jesus.
Jedi name is, right?
But if you called him Turkey Baster, if you said the words together, his character would stab you in game.
Nice. You know what my Jedi name is?
What?
OB-GYN.
OB-GYN, yeah.
Anyway, she leads a revolution against Blastar, finds out that the guy she's fallen in love with, and you've got to think that in the timeline that these 4 issues took place, she was there for fucking weeks, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And then you flash back to the X-Men at the end of this, and they're like, "We've been searching for you nonstop since you disappeared. You motherfuckers didn't give her up for dead after like a week or two of just being gone. Like, you don't have anything better to do. Apocalypse still runs the fucking world. You were just raising hell at her, telling her that she fucked up again. She was out anyway. You're already prepared to lose the bitch. Like, why are you just spending all of your time searching for her? That doesn't make any goddamn sense."
No, it really doesn't. It's because she's a MacGuffin, so they gotta go find the MacGuffin.
But
Because as much as I love Blink, I do admit that's exactly what she is.
no,
You just like the design.
she
Dude, she's hot.
She works the revolution. You know, she leads them to near victory. Her and her beloved get captured. She finds out that he's a nihilist. Because she's a woman, she gets mad at him until she finds out that he wasn't lying about not knowing. And then she frees him even though he's a nihilist. And then she destroys the cannon and Blastar or whatever. And then somehow ends up back in Earth 6-1 or in Age of Apocalypse world, not in the negative zone. There's also a blurry cameo of the Fantastic Four, and that's the end. Like, and then you see a flash forward of what happens to Blink after the Age of Apocalypse. Somehow she blinks to the regular reality. Excuse me, fucking what?
Yeah.
You fucking what, mate?
Yeah.
Is she Miles Morales now? Is that where we got this from? Like, characters from one universe
Yeah.
inexplicably MacGuffining their way into the new universe that they shouldn't exist in? We couldn't have had Charles Xavier
Her
in
and
this
X-Man
universe.
were
Will we get fucking Blink in ours? Fuck you. This isn't a fair trade. Everything should go back to the status quo. We're ahead now. We don't want it. Take it back. Sorry.
Yeah. Was it her and X-Man both end up in 616
Mhm.
somehow? I mean, I get
That's
it.
comics.
But neither one of them had a goddamn cheeseburger in their pocket to explain why they're here.
Oh, the worst part is it's not even just the two of them. Holocaust ends up in 616
As
as
does
well.
Sugar Man. Scott, do you get
Yes,
that
that's
reference?
right. So the
Yeah.
Sugar Man.
The cheeseburger reference. Do you get that?
Yeah.
Okay. Making sure.
Yeah, that flew over my head, I'm afraid.
Cheeseburgers and milkshakes.
No. The cheeseburger joke. The reason that Miles Morales exists in Marvel 616 current year is because he had a cheeseburger in his pocket during the Secret Wars in 2015. I'm
Okay.
not even kidding you. He had a cheeseburger in his pocket when he went onto the ship that ended up in stasis for 8 years after Doom pulled Battle World together. And when he discovered Molecule Man, he gave him the cheeseburger that he was carrying in his pocket because Molecule Man asked if they had any food. And Peter's like, "You've been carrying a cheeseburger around in your pocket for 2 months?" I get hungry. What the fuck? But because of that, Molecule Man feels sorry for Miles Morales not having a universe to go back to, so he sends him to Peter Parker's.
That's so lame.
I
I
thought
had no idea it was that gay.
I thought it was funny. Like I have a soft spot for anything Secret Wars related, though. So you're going to be hard pressed on having me agree with anything about it being gay, and I will fight you over it, sir. I'm just fucking with you. But
I
anyway,
honestly haven't read the modern Secret Wars, so
that well, before we get into that, we'll talk about that after we end the show. But I think that wraps up the Blink portion, and that concludes the show for this evening. I appreciate everybody that hung out with us.
There's one
Hopefully,
little funny thing I want to point out real quick.
yeah, go ahead.
It's in the first issue, and I
Okay.
think it's just an art like, that they. I guess they thought I was going to be too much to show, but now that maybe they changed it later, versus the original. I don't know, but so most of, or actually, majority of Blink being in these issues, she's her way her outfit is. She's got this, kind of, I guess, kind of loincloth thing that goes down. That's kind of half dress that she wears, right? Or her
Yeah.
sides of her legs are showing, and the middle is covered up by this flap on both the front and the back.
Right.
Well, there's a page on, let's see, what page is this? On issue 1, and let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's like page 9 or page 10. She's suddenly wearing like these bicycle shorts.
oh
And
yeah.
Oh yeah.
there are things like up a lot where if it wasn't for that, you would be able to see a bunch of her, her ass basically.
Right.
And I just thought it was interesting that they like, oh well, that maybe I guess the writers like, oh that's too much. You got to put some bicycle shorts on her. All of a sudden, in the rest of the book, she's not wearing bicycle shorts. She's back to just exposing her legs and all. I don't know. I just thought it was funny how they were just like, oh, it's too much.
It's probably a little too racy because you'd see a bit of vagine in that picture
Well,
otherwise.
it's funny too because they could have just like redrew her little cloth hanging down the back to where it's not exposing her butt so much, but I guess it was easier.
It was probably easier just to put shorts on her. Yeah. You don't have to remove anything. You can add shorts. You don't have to move the cape.
Right.
But yeah.
That was hilarious.
No, but anyway, yeah, that kind of concludes the review section of this episode. What did you guys think? It wasn't as strong as Legion Quest for me, and I don't think it's going to be as strong as the proper Age of Apocalypse. But
right.
No, it's hard to beat something as comprehensive as the Age of Apocalypse actual arc and the lead up Legion Quest, though. Like, those are two phenomenal stories, in my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, like you said, a lot of this is just explanation, backstory,
a couple of these
stuff.
books,
I guess they wanted to get out of their system, and
a couple of these books were written well after Age of Apocalypse finished too. That's another thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Blink was well after, like you were saying, she's returned or whatever.
Right.
But yeah.
But anyway,
Chronicles is important, Chronicles and a
Mhm.
couple others, but otherwise, yeah, it's just kind of.
Chronicles and Tales from Age
Yeah,
of Apocalypse. I think you can skip everything else. You really don't need any of it.
Yeah.
And you probably would do better reading it in the order it was released. Like once you know everything from Age of
Right.
Apocalypse, maybe one
Yeah,
day
it's
you
kind of
go
like
and you pick
watching.
up. Mhm.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching Star Wars, the original movies, and then there's all these books and things out there to explain more. And you could read all that, you could, but you don't have to.
Right.
right.
You still get the
So,
gist if you just watch the.
but anyway, find Scott Payne on Twitter and the link in the description down below. Same with Einbrecht and Ayrton. Check out Ayrton's YouTube channel. Scott, do you have anything you want to plug?
No, I think no. I'm gonna say Age of Apocalypse. Yeah, I'm the writer of Age of Apocalypse. Kayak Flux #2 is still in demand on Indiegogo, and it's doing really well. It's up to 5,700. Getting close to 6,000, which would be awesome to reach that point. But if you guys if you enjoy Age of Apocalypse and storylines like that, like the X-Men, like the creatures from Resident Evil, twisted storytelling and big surprises like in Game of Thrones, as well as diverse teams like the X-Men or Battle Chasers, where characters have really awesome abilities and they're all pretty well different from one another. Then you're going to love Chaotic Flux. You can also get issue 1 in the campaign as well as an add-on to issue 2. And it is still in demand right now on Indiegogo for, I think we're 5 more months. It's still going to be out. So if you want to get it, definitely
Nice.
grab it. You can get issue 1 and 2 for $25 on the physical level. And that's 48 pages of story. And you can also get the digital versions for $7 for both of them. I'm sorry, $8. $8 for both.
They're really solid reads. I had a lot of fun reading through them, so I'd recommend it. If you, like Scott said, if you like Age of Apocalypse, I think you'll definitely enjoy his Chaotic Flux. It's pretty fun. Good story.
Man, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, it's hard not to. I like the weird. I've always liked the weird schlocky stuff because it's fun. Like, I think one of the most important things that a lot of writers fail to grasp is you can't just have 5 million pages of text Mark Wade.
Right. Like what's his name? Alan Moore. He had a lot of his stuff is like a lot of text. But it's still pretty good. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of The Watchmen and that kind of stuff. But there's
Don't
a
get me
lot
wrong, that man's an amazing storyteller, but his
Yeah.
his propensity for exposition is
Yes. Yeah.
It's a thing sometimes.
Right. But yeah,
I still have some PTSD from Alan Moore. But
the fish penis will forever be ingrained upon his brain.
yeah, exactly.
Well, it's actually pretty bad because we were doing an Alan Moore week where we were just looking at a bunch of Alan Moore books that were just kind of out there and not really well known. So I gave Ayrton a list to choose from, and he's like, "Let's look at Neonomicon." And I said, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Yeah, that looks fun." And I knew he hadn't actually read it yet because I had, and I knew it wasn't fun. And I said, "Okay, you did this to you."
See, for some reason, I'm still doing this goddamn show after that.
Oh, I don't. I think the power of Cthulhu compels you.
I mean, at this point, like, yeah.
Like, so.
It's I would say what you will. It's mind-bogglingly dark as that book is. Neonomicon's a surprisingly fun read.
Oh yeah.
It's really not.
Like, it's.
You don't like the naked grandma laid out in the bed?
No,
Okay.
I really don't.
Okay. Well, I just want you to know you did that to you.
To be fair, I really like the whole eldritch horror angle because I've always.
Well, we're
no. There were some. The premise was interesting, and that's what I read was just the synopsis, and it sounded interesting.
You see what they do to me, Scott? Like, they obviously know I was trying to wrap the show. I was letting you plug your stuff, and then these two motherfuckers start talking about Neonomicon and fish penis and old naked women, and obviously I'm trying to.
All I said is I still have some PTSD from that motherfucker. You guys brought up all the twisted, effed up stuff.
So you admit to starting it because that's what I blatantly just said. I love you, Ayrton. Einbrecht, do you have anything you want to say before we get out of here? And please don't say anything about fish penises.
Go check out the Littlest Umbrella. Go check out Xenotype, and go check out what is it? The one from Adam, the zombie book. Damn it. I can't remember.
Great plug, Einbrecht.
I have faith in you. College of the Dead.
Oh my College of the Dead. Yeah.
College of the Dead. Thank you. That's the one. If you like zombies, check out College of the Dead. It's imperative. But other than that, no. Those are I already plugged Scott. Scott already plugged Scott. Those are the other three. Check those out.
Nobody plugged Scott. Cool. No, nobody plugged anybody here. That was on the work campaign chat.
I mean,
Ayrton, do you have anything you want to say before we get out of here? Please say no so we can just leave.
I was going to say good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, guys.